Hey everybody, this is Steven from PopCultureMaven.com. We're back with this week's new comic book reviews, and shockingly, it's a very light week, folks. We might even get through these quicker than usual. One can only hope. I don't know. Maybe we'll spend a little more time. But anyways, I hope everybody's doing well. We got to, like I said, even though it's a small week, there's some really good books. Fortunately, nothing that was completely terrible this week, but a few disappointments. But we're going to start off with... okay, so first off, we have the Bone Orchard Mythos 10,000 Black Feathers #1, written by Jeff Lemire with artwork by Andrea Sorrento. So what this is, so they're doing a 3 sets of books that is the Black Bone Orchard Mythos. So the first thing that came out, and I'll show you this, is Passageways. So they're separate stories, but they're connected. Not like you have to read them. You can read them by themselves, but it's like a connected world. But they do stand on their own, and they will. Like I said, there's Passageway that was the first. That was the original graphic novel. Then 10,000 Black Feathers is the second one, and I can't quite remember what the third one is, but there's going to be a third series done by the same creative team of Lemire and Sorrento. So you can read them separately, but like I said, they kind of take place in the same universe, and they're connected, sort of. So what it is so you have Trish, who is she's a writer, and she's going back to her hometown of Hamilton. And so what it is, so you have like starts off, there's a flashback with her, and she's I guess new to town, and she's reading a book, and Jackie comes up to her and ask her, hey, will you like this book? I've read this. Have you read this? And stuff like that. So they get to know each other's kids. And then Jackie takes her back to her house, where she meets her mom, Trish. And so then you kind of go to the present day, where Trish is coming back to Hamilton. And so she goes to Trish's house, Terry's house, and she says, hey, I'm back in town. She's now a famous writer, but she struggled with her last few books, and they haven't been his big sellers as her original ones. So she's going back home to basically try to get recapture her writing and stuff like that. So, but what we find out is that there's something that has happened to Jackie. We don't quite know, but she has this, we don't know if it's a dream or real, where Jackie is like the spirit or something, and she's asking for help. So that's kind of the setup here. So it's quite interesting. As you know, I'm a huge fan of Lemire and Sorrento's. Gideon Falls was absolutely amazing. They've done they did a Joker Black Label series at DC. They're really they also did oh geez, I can't think of the name. It's the one where they had the space, the dog and the monkey. That was really good. There's just really a good team. And what I like about especially the 10,000 Black Feathers is it's reminds me obviously a lot of Gideon Falls, in the sense of it falls into the horror category somewhat, but I think it's more of it's not so much like a gore horror. It's more of it's one of those that kind of gets under your skin. It's super creepy, and that's what makes it really interesting. I mean, Lemire just really the way he sets it up and everything, you immediately get to know these characters, especially introducing the two girls when they first meet is actually a really kind of genius idea. And I also love where the Sorrento's artwork, he's a really amazing artist, but I like how he's doing the two styles. So when there's a flashback to the kids, it has a specific style, and then when you're in the present day, it has a different style. So it actually really gives you just that. I mean, obviously visually there's the difference, but it's also like you can tell that like in the past it's more candy color and very, you know, sweet and like good memories, where present is kind of dark and dingy. So it's beyond the style, it's also a mood thing that he's doing. Like I said, I really like this first issue. I really like Passageways too. So like I said, you can start by reading 10,000 Black Feathers by itself. But I would say that you definitely, if your comic shop still has some copies of Passageway, it's really, really a good original graphic novel. It's really one of my picks of the week. It's really well worth checking out. Next up, we have Masquerade #1, written by Kevin Smith and Andy McFresh, with art by John Springelmeyer. So the basic premise here is there's this city that was built. It's going to be like the new San Francisco, but there was like a flood, and it kind of ruined the city. Now it's kind of a wasteland. You know, drugs, prostitutes, crime. You know, it's really, really bad. And the city of Trenton is, you know, like I said, was supposed to be the new San Francisco. Now it's a real dive, and so it's that's a setup of the city that, you know, it's crime infested and everything. So then it cuts to Dwayne, who's works for a news local news station, and he ends up getting fired because he's sleeping with the head female anchor, and her husband is actually his producer. So obviously he catches them in the act. He gets fired. So there's this kind of Instagram star, Felicia, where she offers Dwayne a job, but there's that set up, and then it cuts to this you know, kind of rich businessman, possibly involved with the mafia or mob, and he's with a prostitute, and then this woman in this like latex suit with no face comes in and basically beats him up. And so what it is, the mask that she wears can mimic anybody. So it scans his face and puts his face on her. And so she basically kidnaps him because they have a past, which I don't want to really give too much away. But obviously there is a past with this woman that captures this guy. And that's kind of the basic setup. The story was, I think, had some good ideas. I wouldn't say that I was bowled over by this first issue. I think there's, like I said, I think there's some good ideas, but it didn't quite grab me like I maybe thought it should. But I think it shows promise. The Springelmeyer's artwork is actually, at first I wasn't really enamored with it. I think a lot of it because, you know, it's kind of a city and stuff like that, but once it kind of gets going, I can you know, his style is very like clean and kind of thick. Like, you know, the characters have, that has really thick line work, but it does work, and it does blend with the story pretty well. So I like I said, I wasn't necessarily overwhelmed with it. I think it shows promise. You know, of course, Smith is obviously known for Clerks and all that kind of stuff. So this is his first comic in quite a while. So so it'll be interesting to kind of see. I think the second issue on this book is going to be the key to if it's going to work or not. Next up, we have Batman and Robin #1, written by Mark Waid with Muhammad Azhar. So really the big thing, and this is not a big secret at this point, is that that Waid brings Alfred back. And at first we don't know why, because Bruce goes back to the manor. Of course, this is all post Joker Wars. He's broke. There's still Wayne Manor, but he doesn't stay there, mostly because Alfred was killed. So Alfred comes back, but he doesn't, and he was cremated. So this is like really bizarre for Bruce. And so what it is he just like, he kind of shows, he knocks on the door and shows up. And but then as he goes down to the Batcave with Alfred, Robin, Damian is there, and it's like he's kind of possessed, because he's really pissed off at Batman, and of course he hides Alfred before Damian can see him. So he's got a couple. There's the kind of a new Johnny Thunder and another kid that are basically, he brought them to help. He's looking to kill Bruce, I guess. We don't quite know why. I mean, obviously Damon is upset, but we kind of find out later that he's really, I don't want to say possessed, but it's like there's somebody in his ear, and I don't want to give anything away, but really we do kind of learn that a lot of this is really magic based, because Alfred and Bruce get away, and so they go to Zatanna, and we find out that that not only her, but all, Constantine, Swamp Thing, Demon, Etrigan have all been attacked. So it's like this thing that's happening to Robin is very magic instigated. So that's kind of really the setup here, and of course Zatanna is like, she's kind of in between, like she's not dead and she's not alive. So Bruce needs to not only figure out what's going on, but he needs to try to save Zatanna. So that's kind of the setup here. I think it's interesting. I mean, we always, let's be honest, we always knew Alfred was going to come back. I think the key is, and I am glad that Mark Waid's doing this, because I think he has a really good way of like coming up with ideas of like, so far he's basically explained that this whole magic thing is why Alfred's back. Now the question is, now Bruce has interrogated him and asked him questions that only Alfred would know. So at this point we have to assume that it really is Alfred. Now whether he wants this whole magic thing, is he going to stick or not, we don't quite know. But we also don't know why Damian really has gone after Bruce. So it's an interesting setup. I liked it. The artwork by Azar was actually, it's a really nice looking book. I really enjoyed the artwork and everything. And I think the magic angle is really good, because I love a lot of those characters: Constantine, Zatanna, Swamp Thing, Etrigan. And so I think it'll be interesting to see where Waid's going to take this story, because I think it's a 4 or 5 part miniseries. So we'll kind of see where it goes. But I think it's off to a good start, and I think it's worth checking out. And yes, it's yet another Batman book, but I enjoyed Waid's writing, and like I said, Azar's artwork's really nice too. Next up we have Love Everlasting #2, written by Tom King, with artwork by Elsa Cartier. So what's kind of interesting about this is, so the first issue had 3 stories, and they all kind of connected, but it was like the character, the female character was in 3 different times. It was almost like, I guess you could say, a reincarnation or something like that. So this one is all one story. It's with Joan is the woman, and there's Roger, and what it is her Joan's mother works for this rich well-off family. And so on the same day Joan is born, the wealthy family, they have a son, Roger. So they grow up together. They hang out and everything, because they're kids. Because the mom works for the family, and so they have their first kiss together because they're like friends. But as they get older, she goes to work for the family as a maid. And Roger has to do things, for the family, because they're of the culture, and they're well off. But he eventually, his dad says, you need to go find a wife, and they set him up with all these, women, because he has to marry well. but he's actually in love with Joan, and so they go to this like summer house, and they have not necessarily an affair, but they're in love. And then there's a twist where we find out that Joan, we're not sure that she actually loves Roger, and this could be very much the same, and I think it is the same woman from the first issue, and it's just like this is a different story or different time. So it's really wild. I'm really liking what King is doing here, where first of all, he's doing like this really straight romance comic, and then later on, it's this weird twist of like, and I don't want to give it away because the twist is just really wild and insanely crazy, but it's really good, of Joan kind of being a different Joan, like. And it's just, and Roger's like the whole time, he's like, I love you. And Joan's like, hey, I've got this thing I'm doing. So it's just really wild. And I love Chartier's artwork. It really is, it just has a nice kind of simple, kind of a bit of kind of like clean animation look, but it really fits the story, especially like the romance kind of first half of the book. And I just love where King is like, he's writing these stories and he has Joan, and yet at first you're like, okay, is this like the same lady? No, I think it's and then all of a sudden he does a twist. It's like, I think it's the same lady, and this is just a different story with her. And I honestly don't care if she's time traveling or reincarnated or whatever. It's just wild and fun, and it's just really, this book is quite fun. So I think it's well worth checking out. Mostly because I can't even think of the last real romance comic that anybody has done. So definitely worth checking out. Next up, we have Sergeant Werewolf #1, written and drawn by Rich Woodall. So this is one of those, it's very possible it could have been a Kickstarter book or something, and it's seeing print outside of that. But basically the really simple thing, it's Sergeant Rock and Nazis and vampires and werewolves and mutated sharks. And so what it is the Sergeant Rock team goes in because they need to destroy this Nazi lab, because they're basically creating golems, which is a Jewish legend. And so they go in, and then the sergeant gets shot, but they end up, one of the guys covers him up with werewolf or wolf skin, which actually turns him into a werewolf. And then they go on and they basically try to they continue their mission, because they were captured initially. And so that's the basic premise here. I think it's like, once again, it's not particularly an original story. It's definitely a takeoff on Sergeant Rock with a werewolf, which has kind of also been done in the DC universe with the Monster Brigade. And it's kind of, the other thing is, like I said, it's not particularly original story. It's an okay story. It's not, I think the thing is, it's kind of, you've read this basic structure of a story before. And then Woodall's artwork is okay. I think it's got some good parts to it. I think there's some really decent looking stuff, but there's also, I think there's times where there's kind of inconsistencies with the characters and kind of the perspective. Like I said, it was okay, but I think it's just, it's one of those things with so many books coming out, it's not quite good enough. But I think if you're interested in like the werewolf aspect and Nazis and Sergeant Rock and all that kind of stuff, it's okay. I don't think it's certainly not terrible by any stretch of the imagination. I just think it's like, for me, it was been there, done that. I've read this kind of story before. I'm sure there's a lot of people who don't even know who, today's readers don't even know who Sergeant Rock is. But Like I said, I would be, you might want to look through it at your local comic shop, see if, if you have the same feelings about the art. It's okay. I've certainly read a lot worse, but it's okay in the end. Next up we have Dark Spaces Wildfire, number 3, written by Scott Snyder, and artwork by Hayden Sherman. So the prisoner fire brigade has infiltrated this house. They're basically they're stealing crypto money, and in the last issue they discovered now, like in the wine cellar, there's like a dead person, and like kind of recently dead. So that's like, they're like, what the and then so all of a sudden while they're there, because they're like, what do we do? They're like, should we report it? Should we just leave it? We're not even supposed to be here. We're basically pulling a bank heist, or robbery. And so, but then while they're there, a fire starts, and yet there's no fire. I mean, there is a fire going on in the forest, but not where they are. So that's odd. And then all of a sudden, there's a group of, like, it looks like mercenaries or something like that. They're dressed in black, and they're like coming to the house. So that's what's going on in this issue. I really have been enjoying this. I think what Snyder is doing with this story is really interesting, because the first 2 issues really build up the characters and stuff. So you got to know them. You got to know, how they all ended up in prison. And that they're not real criminals per se. I mean, they've done stuff that has landed them in jail, but I wouldn't consider them, really hardened criminals. And they're just trying to basically by robbing, they're trying to make a better life for them and their family and stuff like that when they do get out. So that is that's that premise, and I like that. And I also like the fact that we have this murder mystery, and then like there's maybe somebody else coming to rob the place. We don't know, but it's like, oh, this is not good, because they're not prepared for that. They were barely prepared for like the dead person. So that, like I said, there was some great twists in this issue I really liked. I really like Sherman's artwork. He's really doing a wonderful job. I also love the way that he's playing with the layouts and everything. It just has a real imaginative visual feel. It's a really great looking book. It's a really great story. You should be reading this book. I really, really like it a lot. Next up, we have Do A Powerbomb, number 4, written and drawn by Daniel Warren Johnson. So, what it is Lorna and Cobra-san are trying, they're wrestling to bring her mother back. And so what it is so we saw in the last issue, it's kind of like, it's like wrestling in hell, where somewhat it's the easiest way to explain it is like Satan he loves wrestling, so he's brought all these different wrestlers in, and they play for keeps. Like we especially see in this issue, like they're like, it's a no holds bar. It's what the thing is wrestling is, wrestling is all choreographed and everything. Here it's like, it's literally a fight to the death. Like if they will kill you. And so they win their match, but they also like, so Cobra-san actually really starts training Lona to work as a team. Just like, because, and a bit of a spoiler if you haven't been reading it, but Cobra-san is her father, but she doesn't know this. So he really, for them to win, they really need to work together. So he really steps up and it really trains her to work together. So, but we also, Uncle Blood, is also he's taken on a partner. And I really don't want to say more, but it really changes. This issue is a real turning point for the story. Like I said, I'm not a big wrestling fan, but I think what I really love that Johnson's doing here is there's so much depth to the story and the characters that when you get to the wrestling part, it actually you actually care about it. You know, I mean, you obviously really care about Lona and Coberson, but I think what he also does really well is a lot of the other contestants. They have somewhat of a backstory, maybe not a huge one, but they do. So I think it's just really how it's really character rich, and that's really the story. I mean, yes, it revolves around wrestling, and like I said, I'm not a big wrestling fan, but this book is damn good. Like I said, the story is amazing. I love Johnson's artwork. His artwork just to me just knocks my socks off. This is really a good book. I cannot recommend it enough. It's very emotional. It's fun. It has action, but it like I said, it has a lot of drama to it, and that's really for me why it's working so well. Next up, we have the Jurassic League #5. Written by Juan Gideon and Daniel Warren Johnson, with artwork by Juan Gideon. So we have found. So at this point, we figured out with the Joker and the I guess you could say the dinosaur version of Legion of Doom has basically resurrected dinosaur Darkseid, and so he's loose and he's going after the Jurassic League. And so we also have Batman, who now has this kind of caveman Robin, although he's not Robin, but he's got a sidekick. And so he's trying to kind of figure out what's going on in the whole thing. And so he goes off, he runs into the Joker dinosaur. And then, of course, Darkseid comes to Theraschema, and Wonder Woman is trying to hold him off, and then fortunately, Superman and the rest of the Jurassic League comes to her rescue. Once again, this is not really a deep story. It's just it's the Justice League is dinosaurs. It's just simple. It's fun. It's charming. I said this in my previous reviews. It's a really good all ages comic. I mean, there's the typical kind of superhero-ish violence and stuff, but it's not a bloodbath. I mean, yes, people get killed, but it's not like they really go overboard with it. It's like I said, it's definitely a good all ages, but I wouldn't say super young. But it's just fun. It's not really deep. It's not really. It's just fun, and that's okay, and that's what I love about the book. I mean, it's just, I think maybe they might have whittled it down to 4 issues, but overall I don't think it's dragging or anything. They've built a nice world, they've developed the characters pretty well, and like I said, it's just a lot of fun, and that's what I'm enjoying about it. And next up we have Spider-Punk #5. Written by Cody Ziegler, with artwork by Justin Mason. So this finishes off the story. There's basically the big battle with all the heroes and the villains. So it's Spider-Punk and his band versus Norman Osborn and his bad guy band. And so really that's what this issue, because it's the last issue, I really won't give anything away. I know you'll be shocked at who wins in the end, but it's just, this really has been a really charming book. I think what I like about it is that it's a different take, somewhat different take on the heroes. There is kind of that whole, somewhat punk aspect to it. But I think what it is, and I really have to give Ziegler props for this, that he doesn't really change the characters. I mean, they're different versions of the characters, but it's still, they all feel like they're characters that they are. And that's, I think, why it has worked so well, is that he didn't really try to invent the wheel. He's just telling different versions of these characters, but keeping them the same. And also, it just has a real fun charm to it. It's really been a really fun book. And I think the other thing that's really helped it is Mason's artwork really gave this like a kinetic, energy. So there you had that fun story, and then you have Mason's artwork that just really brings the goods to the table, and it's just been really enjoyable. And I would say at this point, obviously this is the final issue. If you've missed it, the trade will be out probably in a few months. I think it's worth checking out. Once again, it's kind of a fairly decent all ages book. I don't think there's anything really insanely. It definitely I'd say 12 and up probably, but it's just a lot of fun. And I think what Ziegler and Mason have done, they didn't try to be more than it was. It just aimed at a certain, like aimed for the middle and hit it perfectly. And that's, I think, why it works so well. Next up, we have The Silver Coin, number 14, written by Pornsak Pashot, with artwork by Michael Walsh. And once again, it's an anthology, but they're always one and done stories. So what this story is about is it really is kind of one of the first comics that I have read that really has dealt with the pandemic. And that's part of its story, where you have a screenwriter, he's writing a horror movie. So you have that vision, where it's like you visually see the screenplay, and then you see the screenwriter and his girlfriend. And what's interesting is that it starts kind of backwards. You're seeing she's going off to live with a friend, so it starts there. But as you see those parts, you're actually seeing, instead of the beginning of their story, you're seeing it go backwards. So like each chapter gets closer to when they like first meet, which is really an interesting really concept for the story. So you have that, you have the back to front, and then you have the screenwriting thing that is kind of going along with it. And it's just really interesting, and it's one of those, it's, as with most of these stories, really disturbing stuff, and it has a great twist. It has a nice Twilight Zone twist at the end, and it really is really interesting. And there's some if eyeballs bother you, if like touching an eyeball bothers you, you might want to skip this issue. There's some really like kind of visually squeamish stuff that I really have to give Walsh props. This is really, and I also like how when he's telling this, there's like the horror, like the screenplay part, horror parts, and then the real life, during the pandemic, how the style's a little bit different, but also the use of color is different to differentiate the two kind of stories. Once again, I love this book. It's one and done. You don't have to, don't be frightened that it's issue 14. You can pick it up, read it on its own. And that's what I love about this book. They're one and done, and that's great. And finally, this week we have Predator number 2, written by Ed Brisson, with artwork by Kev Walker. So what it is this woman, she's hunting predators, or she's looking for a particular predator that killed her family. And so she's been traveling around finding predators, and then going into their spaceships to find their computers to where they have been, because she's trying to find the one that has obviously killed her parents. And so she's using that to track, but she hasn't run across. So as she was going on, looking for a new predator, a new planet, to find one on, she ends up crashing on this basically this, like, I guess you could say ice planet, because it's snowy, it's bad. And so the irony is, it looks like she may have found the predator that she's looking for. We don't know yet, and I don't want to spoil it, but it's a really interesting issue where she's trying to get parts for the ship. She comes across these guys that try to kill her. She doesn't take any guff. She steals their rocket cycle. And it's really interesting. I'm really digging what Brisson's doing with the story. It's a Predator story. He's not trying to reinvent the wheel here, but I think telling it from this different point of view is always kind of interesting. I mean, you've got to come up with, I mean, the Predator is always like the easy part of the story. It's coming up with the story of why so and so is with the Predator, and I think that's what Brisson is doing well here. Walker's artwork's really nice. It's a good looking book. I would imagine that it'll probably be similar to the Alien book, that it'll probably be this will be the first story arc, and then they'll do like a completely different story. That's my guess. I don't know, because we're only in the second issue, but like I said, this first story arc's fun. If you're a fan of Predator, obviously it works really well. So I think it's worth checking out. It's a good story with really nice artwork, and well worth checking out. That's gonna do it this week. We got through pretty good. Not too bad this week. I feel good about it. As always, public service announcement. I get all my comics at Pulp Fiction Comics in Long Beach, California. Ryan Skinner runs a great store there. He's the owner. There's Annie, Eduardo, Derek, and Wendy. They have a pull service. If you do their pull service, you get a discount on your comics, new comics. They offer discounts on trades and graphic novels and manga. They have a really good selection. And if it's something they're out of, and as long as they can order it from a distributor, they'll try to get it for you. Also they have a lot of great customers. Definitely Wednesdays are hopping days where you can there's always some great conversation that is always happening there. There is, if you live in the LA area, there's a sister store, Pulp Fiction Culver City. That is a different owner, same name, sort of. But it's run by Chris and her team, and she has same discounts. Really nice store, great customer service again. Really, both really good stores locally in the LA area. But like I said, I obviously have my fondness for the Long Beach store. But either way, as always, support your local comic shop. They're the backbone of the industry. They're the reasons why we get these lovely comics every week. Definitely, it's always great to support your local comic shop. And as always, we end our show with please be kind to each other. As I know, things are tough. We all have our ups and downs. Sometimes we have more downs than ups. But as always, try to when you're be kind to each other, it really makes a difference. You can really make somebody's day by just saying hi, smile. It really is simple, and it'll make you feel better, and it'll make somebody else feel better. That's going to do it. Thanks for watching. Take care of yourselves. We'll be back next week with obviously more comics to review. So thanks for watching. Please like and subscribe to our YouTube channel. It's always appreciated, and comments are always welcome. So take care of yourselves. Be safe. Thanks for watching. We'll see you next week. This is Steven from PopCultureMaven.com signing off. All right. Take care. Bye-bye.